Next speaker. Our next speaker is, you know him very well. All of you know him very well. He's called Sajjadul Hakim, right? Sajjadul Hakim. He's the test manager at Therapy Limited, and that's me! The test manager at Therapy Limited. Come on, give me a hand if it, That's bad, alright? Wait till I give my presentation, then you say I'm bad. Alright, so I'll be talking about innovation stories of Toolsmiths and testers. No, not yet. I'm going to give him a cue, and I've already, when I say play the drum, you play the drum. Don't listen to these people, okay? Don't listen to them. Alright, so we're going to talk about innovation stories of Toolsmiths and testers. Okay, start. So, at testers and Toolsmiths have made some very cool stuff to speed up their testing, and that's one of them is TesterFoo. It's a user script framework. Now, what is a user script? A user script is JavaScript's code that gets executed after a web page loads on your browser. So your web page loads, and you write certain codes on different JavaScript code on different files, and the browser executes those files on that page. So it runs on any browser, and you can use that code to manipulate the HTML page content, watch JavaScript variables, get more info about the HTML DOM as well. So the TesterFoo makes user script much easier to write actually. And TesterFoo includes jQuery and some third-party APIs. It can be extended as well. If you don't know about jQuery, don't worry about it. I can explain later. And jQuery actually handles most of the browser-specific code, so it makes it easier to write JavaScript code. Now, I'll show you a demo over here. All right? Because, I'm not very good at slides. So, this is a Terap application, and that small part over there is TesterFoo. You see all those icons, these are user scripts, okay? We call it tools, so we've written separate user scripts. And it's interesting is that he clicked on that particular icon, and that particular page slid into view, and that is what he wrote, okay? The code he wrote was changed to Spanish, changed to English. He didn't actually have to worry about every other UI there is. So he's just doing some silly stuff, changing the application language to Spanish. And over here, we're going to demonstrate another tool. Is watch that small rectangle over there next to the input box. So this actually focuses on particular input boxes. So TesterFoo opens up for that input box, and you can start a tool, and whatever you execute on that tool will be executed. Whatever you run on that tool is executed on that particular input box. Over here is something we use to count the number of characters we're entering. We can actually even type the number of characters we want, and it will generate the text on its own as well. And in the next one, we're going to show you that TesterFoo, other than the compact view, it also has a wide view. So because we understand that there are certain things in the tool that you want to show in a wide view. For example, over here, he's tampering the URL. The URL is encoded and decoded automatically, so he doesn't have to worry about that. Where he just deleted some query strings, and he's going to apply that on the page. It's very easy to use. He's going to apply that on the page, and the page is going to reload, and it's causing an error. Alright, over here is a very cool feature we introduced. It's a profiler for the tools you've written. So it will show you the execution times of the tool in graphical form, so you know that, since it executes on every page load, you want to know the performance of it, and it's easy to pull it back up, close it, and all that. Over here we're going to show you the notification feature. Your tools may have test assertions. You're checking certain page elements and JavaScript variables and all that. And if it fails your assertions, you can give alert notifications like that. Easy to close, easy to get back up, and is very seamless so that your testing does not get obstructed when you're doing these things. Alright, and in the next feature, we're going to show you, see, look at this. This is Facebook in TesterFoo. I just gave that as a demonstration because just to say that you can put any web page in TesterFoo in an iframe format, and you can even add a Flash widget in TesterFoo as well. Over here, we're going to show you a demonstration of a messaging client that we have in Terap, and what we're going to show you is, for example, over here, he opened up this message and he's going to show you there are 3 recipients over here. Now usually if you want to check if everyone else received this message, you'd want to log back in like he did over here and go to each and every user, like the 3 users, and log in and see if he got the message. But we got some more innovations over here. This is another feature of TesterFu. It slits back up, slits out from the side. It's basically when you need to do things quickly, you don't want icons and everything. And it's very easy to actually program this in. And this is another innovation. What he did was he used TesterFu to call up our second application, which actually converts a query into these tabular form, and it even supports Ajax into it as well from those queries. And what he's doing is he's actually logging in automatically to all those users' message page and seeing that message without actually logging in. It saves a hell of a lot of time, believe me. And the final thing I'm going to show you is really, really cool. Have you ever done browser compatibility testing? You are in the middle of a test and you have to you say you logged in and you're in the middle of a transaction. Now you want to check the JavaScript code in another browser. So what do you do? You open the browser and log back in and go to that particular transaction and see the JavaScript. But over here with TesterFu, it's that easy. It generates the URL, you load that URL in another browser, and you're there. Thank you. Cheated a little. I created a slide that does everything for you, so even if he stops me in the middle, and it can go on and talk for itself. Alright, I know it was pretty fast, but there was a lot to cover, and I just wanted to give a gist of all the features that's there. And I think this is pretty innovative. I don't think you've seen this before. And questions? Yeah. What? You want to get it?
You'll get it.
You're going to get it. We are trying, this is currently in alpha state, and it's, actually we started developing this like 3 months ago. We had been working on user script for a long time, like more than 2 years, and this is what we came up with very recently, that this really improves our testing. And the performance initially was pretty bad. Page would load like 10 seconds. It will take the page load because you had to load all these things. All this code had to be executed after a page loads your JavaScript code. So we actually rewrote everything like twice and made it really optimized. Now the page load time takes like 0.2 seconds. All right, in Firefox. In IE6 probably it takes like 0.5 seconds. So it's a little longer in IE. So we're still tweaking these things. And but it's totally usable. We use it all the time, but it'll take some time for us to tweak these things. And the API is pretty, I think it's in a stable state right now. All right. So what we're thinking is probably take another 3 months before we'd want to give it to you guys, so that you can use it too. And there's some documentations we have to do so that you can use it as well.
Okay. Everything is JavaScript.
Everything is JavaScript, yes.
Okay, if the programmer does an error in the middle of the code, what happens then?
Which code? Can you give an example?
If I write a code and the test2 is working beneath, and some error in the content, JavaScript error.
In my code, in the TesterFu's user script that you've written, the developer's code?
Developer's.
Okay, so basically, when you have errors in the code of the developer, so the browser executes that, loads that page, and will first run the JavaScript code on that page, right?
Yes.
So if there is an error, you're going to see an error message on the browser itself. It's going to give like an alert saying that there was a JavaScript error. Whatever browser you use, you're going to get an alert.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with
TesterFu will be stopped there.
TesterFu will stop because the JavaScript executions will stop over there. So that's the preliminary problem you have. It's like you have an application, and when you're trying to log in, the application crashes. So nothing else will happen. It's pretty normal. So tester-foo will only execute after the whole web page and its JavaScripts have executed without errors. So it's very important that you have your error reporting enabled. Sometimes you can actually disable those in IE and all those other things, so you'll never notice those. So make sure that you have those enabled. Yeah.
I think the Firebug we are using right now.
Firebug. Yeah.
Firebug doesn't do any problem. It's also JavaScript code. It doesn't do any problem
But what are you testing with Firebug? Firebug is not really a testing tool.
It's
you
not
can diagnose or troubleshoot certain on a page,
yeah.
but this is a complete testing tool. You write code to actually test features on the page. For example, say you have a list with like 1,000 items on the list, but you're not going to count, like if you're moving like 10 from one list to another list, you're not going to keep counting those. You're going to run JavaScript. Before, what I used to do is I used to write in Firebug, I used to write certain code, like get element by ID and all those, and just see the count of those things. I'm giving a very trivial example so that you understand. But now you don't have to do that. You just create an interface. I mean, you don't have to worry about that beautiful UI you saw over there and everything. All you do is just write your tool. You put a button in your tool. All right, it's very easy to do that. Just an input box. Input button. And then on the click of action of that button, you just write to get that particular element, and then get all the properties or expander properties, whatever you have for that element, and you can just display it on that page. Lines of code is very small and it gets executed all the time over there. Any more questions? Sure.
Another question: is it a plugin or just we have to embed the code in the?
Okay. Basically, user scripts have been around for a long time, but it's more prevalent with people using Firefox, okay, because there's this Grease Monkey and all those. So what we tried to do is we didn't want to be restricted by Firefox. We wanted for it to run on all browsers, and there's problems with that because you have to write browser-specific code for that. IE's event handling is different from Firefox's event handling, but we didn't want to worry about these things. Okay, so that's why we created tester-foo. So the tester-foo framework and its API. The reason I'm saying it's a framework as well is because you have a directory structure where you write separate tools and then it merges these tools together into one file, and it's a little complicated. I can explain later, but someone can stop me if I'm overshooting these things. But I got the veto power over here. So what we did was we wanted it to be executed on all browsers, so we actually did some research and we found that even IE6 supports user scripts. You just need another add-on for it. It's called Turnabout, and there's something called Trixie, which is pretty bad actually. It doesn't really work that well. And IE7 has IE7 Pro. IE8 also uses IE7 Pro. You can execute user scripts for that. Chrome has built-in user script feature, compatibility feature, and even Opera has built-in user script compatibility. So all major browsers that actually you want to have tested has all this. The only problem was you had to write these APIs. So what we did, we included jQuery, as a lot of the programmers over here know that jQuery makes JavaScript coding very easy because it actually is an abstract layer over browsers, and we wanted that so badly in user scripts, which you can only get if you're using Grease Monkey, but you cannot use that in other add-ons because they're not that sophisticated. So we had to create a layer, a framework, an API for that. And so you can use jQuery, you can write your code with jQuery, and everything's just that simple.
User script. Can you show the user script?
Yeah. Right now, do I have time? No. He doesn't have time, but I can show you. After this.
I have one last question. Sajjadul Hakim. Yeah. I'm guessing that you used Grease Monkey and Turnabout for different browsers.
Yes.
Okay, so JavaScript essentially behaves differently in different browsers. So how did you handle that?
Right. That's what I was explaining a while back. Is that we wanted that different JavaScript handles differently in different browsers. It's mostly because of the code that you write. So jQuery, when you're using jQuery for this, because the different browser thing is mostly about event handling, about CSS and all those kind of things. jQuery actually handles a lot of those. All right. So the major problem you're going to have with different browsers is CSS. All right, because of IE. IE has bad standard compliance, and Firefox has too good standard or moderate standard compliance, and Opera has just too good of a standard compliance. Oh, I forgot to mention, even Safari has built in support for user script. So, a lot of that is abstracted by jQuery on that, and a lot of the things like handling cookies is like a little difficult when you're trying to create cookies because you have to write big strings and all that. The best thing about this, we have found a way actually that you can add jQuery plugins into TesterFoo. You can extend TesterFoo with jQuery plugins, and it will have like no side effects on the page. So your page can have that plugin or a different version of jQuery running on that particular page. It doesn't matter what version of those plugins you're doing on jQuery. We've done extensive testing on that. The reason is we used a very good feature of jQuery is I totally forgot. I think it actually, what it does is it stores the jQuery dollar and the jQuery object names, object references on a separate variable. And after jQuery is loaded, you can actually, what was it called? No conflict. Yes, we use the no conflict feature, but the extreme no conflict feature, which is like even better than no conflict. But it has some problems with extreme no conflict feature because the plugins it doesn't work if you're using extreme no conflict. So what we had to do is we had to tweak the plugins as well. We had to rename certain object variable names to make it work, but it works perfectly in those sense. Did I answer that question? Okay. Is that all right? You have a question? Yeah. Go ahead.
Can you do the similar tasks using Selenium?
Yeah, with Selenium is a little different. Selenium is an automation script. This was never intended to be an automation script. For example, the last presentation I showed you, the last slide or the last video clip I showed you, is about browser compatibility. With Selenium, what you would actually do is you would automate the whole process over again. So you'd write like a script that logs in, goes to that particular page, does that particular transaction, and goes to that intermediate transaction state. Okay, so you have to write all that, and then what you'd have to do is you have to run it on a different browser, because Selenium is that, it is browser independent in some way. That's what they claim, but there are some problems with that too. And you have to run the whole thing on a different browser, but that also takes up a lot of time. You have to write all this. But the last thing I showed you was that it generates, you just do whatever you like. You authenticate, you get into an authenticated page, and you generate a URL. The URL is a magic URL actually. What it does is it takes all the cookie variables, it takes all the cookie objects, it generates a string, encodes that, and generates a URL with those cookies and the target URL you want to go, which is the current page. So what is that? What it is that you go to a different browser, you just paste that URL on that browser, run it. And since all of our browsers in our test lab runs TesterFoo, TesterFoo automatically detects that this is a special URL. It grabs the cookie string. It generates it deciphers the cookie, decodes the cookie string, and enters the cookie into the browser so that all those session variables that gets posted in the browser as well. And then it loads the page. It just says load the target page. And you are in the current session. No session change, no nothing, and it's a snap. You can test 5 browsers in 10 seconds. It's that simple. 10 seconds is exaggeration, but probably 30 seconds. It's that simple. So that's what I'm saying. This is nothing about automation. We've been trying to figure out how to speed up testing for a long, long time. And we thought that automation has its gains, but it has its problems. So what we were doing was trying to give bionic arms, extra vision, and all those kind of things to testers, and this is what we came up with. Thank you. Morning, communicating this. Thank you. Okay, I took up a lot of time. I hope that was interesting. We're going to go to our next